मला अन्न, वस्त्र, निवारा, शिक्षण सगळं मिळालं. काय मिळालं नाही तर एक निरपेक्ष प्रेम आणि वाईट संकटांपासून संरक्षण आणि काही बालपणीच्या गोड आठवणी. माझं नाव मयुरी सुषमा. माझं बालपण कुटुंबात नसून बालगृहात झालेलं आहे. आज भारतामध्ये लाखो अशी मुलं आहेत ज्यांचं बालपण हरवलेलं आहे आणि त्यांचं मूलभूत अधिकारांपासून ते वंचित आहेत. सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचं म्हणजे कुटुंबाचा अधिकार. आज मुलं कुटुंबात नाहीत कारण गरिबी, पालकांचा मृत्यू अथवा इतर कोणतेही कारण असेल आणि म्हणूनच आज मुलं बालगृहात येत आहेत. आज भारतामध्ये बालकांच्या सुरक्षेसाठी विविध कायदे आहेत, नियम आहेत, पॉलिसीज आहेत, पण तरी देखील मुले आज बालगृहात जातात. बालगृहात कुटुंबाप्रमाणे पुरेशा संधी मिळत नाहीत जेणेकरून मूल शिकेल, विकसित होईल. तसेच कुटुंबामध्ये प्रत्येक मुलाकडे हे इंडिव्हिज्युअल अटेन्शन दिलं जातं. सरप्रायझिंगली बालगृहातील 10 मुलांमधील 8 मुलांना पालक अथवा नातेवाईक कोणी ना कोणीतरी असतातच. जर या कुटुंबांना आपण सक्षम केलं, त्यांना योग्य ते वेळी योग्य तो आधार दिला, तर नक्कीच ही मुलं आपल्या कुटुंबात परत जाऊ शकतात. आमचं 8 राज्यांमध्ये ग्रासरूट लेवलवर काम चालतं, जिथे आम्ही कुटुंबांसोबत काम करतो आणि त्यांच्या ॲबिलिटीजवर काम करतो, त्यांचं सक्षमीकरण करतो, जेणेकरून प्रत्येक मूल त्यांच्या कुटुंबात राहील. जसं माझं कठीण बालपण बालगृहात गेलं, तसं कोणत्याही बालकाला जगावं लागणार नाही. आज मी आई झाली आहे. माझ्या बाळाकडे बघून मला इतकंच वाटतं की त्याला एक सुरक्षित आणि प्रेमळ कुटुंब मिळावं.
Miracle Foundation works closely with the government in alignment with Mission Vatsalya to ensure children do not get separated from families, and those who have been living in childcare institutions are safely and sustainably transitioned to families.
The video we just saw was featuring our dear Mayuri. The video is a constant reminder to us at Miracle Foundation India that a family for every child in our lifetime is at the core of what we do. I think this has set the tone for our discussion today. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to everyone. My name is Anisha Ghosh. Before we dive into our leadership dialogue today, I'd like to share our safeguarding rules and our housekeeping policies. If I could just quickly have that slide up, please. While the slide is being pulled up, can I please also request everyone to please introduce yourself in the chat box and also keep your mics on mute. Our child safeguarding policy is very, very important to us. And I'd like to state it up front. Miracle Foundation India believes in safeguarding children and in adherence to our child safeguarding policy and practice. None of the speakers today will be using the real names or locations while giving examples or sharing the case stories. The audience, as I said, is requested to maintain silence. Please mute yourself. We will maintain the confidentiality of our children while sharing examples, even during the Q&A sessions. Today's discussion will be conducted in a meeting format, and the language that we will be using is English. The cameras for the hosts and the speakers will be turned on. If the participants wish to keep it on, you're welcome. You can even turn it off while the dialogue is on. As the session progresses, we encourage everyone to please share your questions in the chat box. By chat box, I mean the Q&A, not the chat box. If you have any good practices, any comments, or if you want to tell us about any innovations that you have been doing or you have documented, you can please share that in the chat box with all of us. Our team will actually respond to all the queries that you put in the Q&A box and not the chat box. So please make sure that if you have any queries, if you have any questions for our speakers, please put it in the Q&A box. We have seen an encouraging number of registrations today for this dialogue, and as an organization, it firms our belief in family strengthening and the issue and the work that we are doing today. It is very critical that we recognize this as a reminder for all of us at this point in time. A big thank you to everyone who's joined us today, and I'm sure a lot of us will be joining subsequently. We will be taking up all your questions in the end. Again, a reminder. Today, if there is a possibility that we do not take up any of your questions, we will note all the questions down and we will create an FAQ document that we will post at the end of the leadership dialogue in a separate emailer that will come to all of you. Today, we've also arranged for resources, some important resources that we've collected from everywhere, from across the globe, from in-country, and we would like to keep sharing it in the chat box. So a reminder to everyone, if you find a resource important, please copy it and save it with you. We will irrespective share it afterwards too. A little bit about our leadership dialogue today. Our Leadership Dialogue series is one of the initiatives that Miracle Foundation India has taken to acknowledge the work of the child protection workforce. We are trying to create a platform that amplifies narratives of family strengthening and family-based alternative care. We're trying to influence the ecosystem and deepen the impact of the work done in this area. The Leadership Dialogue also tries to foster collaboration amongst the government stakeholders, civil society organizations, practitioners, subject matter experts, care experienced youth, and local heroes. As you know, this is the fourth Leadership Dialogue that we are doing today. And we're building on the previous leadership dialogues, which were focused on prevention and gatekeeping. And today we will try and delve deeper into demystifying family strengthening in the context of transition. Some of you must be aware of Mission Vatsalya. The Ministry of Women and Child Development is implementing a centrally sponsored scheme by the name of Mission Vatsalya, which provides preventive, statutory, and rehabilitation services to children who are in need of care and protection, as well as those in conflict with law, as defined under the Juvenile Justice Act of 2015, which was amended in 2021. A key focus under the Mission Vatsalya scheme is to facilitate and ensure convergence with other departments at the center, state, and district level, and also to build intersectoral linkages on child protection issues. The centrally sponsored scheme serves also as a roadmap aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals to address development and child protection priorities. A recent letter by the MWCD, the Ministry of Women and Child Development, highlighted a significant increase in the number of children that were covered under the non-institutional care by state governments from the financial years 2021 to 2022 to 2023 to 2024. This shift, aligned with the Juvenile Justice Act, aims to reintegrate children with their families wherever feasible. The number of children in non-institutional care, which includes foster care, aftercare, sponsorship, and adoption, has risen from 29,331 to 1,21,861, underscoring the urgent need for all stakeholders, including CSOs, to ensure that children are safe, thriving in family environments. This is achievable by strengthening families to sustainably care for children, facilitating smooth transition from CCIs to family setups. Family strengthening is a globally recognized and increasingly accepted concept. And to build a common understanding on this concept, especially focusing on transition from CCIs to families, we are dedicating this leadership dialogue to this particular topic. Okay, I think now it's time for all of us to engage in a little quiz. Can I request Shweta to please pull up the Menti for everyone? While Shweta is pulling up the Menti, I'll just take you through the Menti process. So you will be able to see a code. You'll have to log into mentimeter.com if that's a correct email. On this side, you will be getting a collaboration request. You need to click join. And when you join, you will be able to see the questions. I hope everyone is able to see the questions. If you're not able to respond, you can even respond in the chat box so that we can just pick it up from there. And while you're engaging on the Menti, just a quick information for everyone. We're live streaming this event on Facebook today. So for anyone who isn't able to join, can also go and view this on Menti. You have 27 seconds to respond. This is almost like fastest finger first for everyone. We are close to 114 people right now, so I'm guessing all 114 of us will be able to respond. Our question is, who are the families we're referring to here? And the options that we have are both parents' households, single parent households, siblings living together, grandparents raising children, cousins living together, foster care parents. We can display the answers, Shweta, if everyone has responded. There's a link in the chat box of mentimeter.com. You will be able to log in from there as well. Okay, here are the answers. So we're saying both parent households are the families that we are referring to here. Okay. Okay, the next one is foster care parents. The next is adoption. And we have single parent households. All right. Okay. Shweta, can we move on to the next question? The question is, how do you define family centering in 2 words? So here you'll have to enter what you think is the right response as per you. It doesn't have to be a right response. It's actually a response. What do you think is, the definition for family strengthening? You have 17 seconds to respond, everyone. Okay, we can see the answers. Someone is saying living together, providing support system, support to family, job, a safe and secure place. Very interesting. Okay, the time is now up for responding to this question. And as you can see, there are a couple of answers that have come in. So someone is saying love and care, providing guidance to family for self, strength-based care, a safe and secure place, empowering them, economic, I'm guessing that means, like economic strengthening as well. 5 well-being domains. That's a very interesting point here. All right. Can we quickly move on to the next question? I'd encourage everyone to please participate. The third one and the final one for right now is, what are the components of family strengthening? Again, this is very similar to the previous one. You just have to answer and just briefly provide what you think. It can be 1 word, it can be 2 words, it can be a one-liner. We've already started seeing the responses. Someone is saying 5 well-being domains. And we have some answers in the chat as well. Someone is saying strong family, child rights, child safety. Okay. A little more answers, please, from everyone. All right. Counseling, linking with the scheme, social protection schemes and linkages, PSS, psychosocial support, values and bonding, child protection, Rohit Karmakar is saying, health, economic support, mental health. One more response we have is child counseling. All right. So those were very interesting answers and very relevant answers for the discussion today. As we go further, we will unravel the mystery and try and demystify family strengthening for everyone. On that note, I'd like to call upon, sorry, there was a little issue with my network here. The insights were amazing. Thank you again for that. On that note, I am extremely delighted and honored to introduce our esteemed panel members. Their detailed bios will also be appearing in the chat. So in case all of you are keen to know more, you can look them up on LinkedIn. You can ask them for their email addresses as well. First, I'd like to begin with Mr. Sonikuti George. Mr. George is a child protection specialist based in Hyderabad field office of UNICEF for the last 15 years. Mr. George has been actively engaged in the promotion of family-based alternative care for over 2 decades. He's been actively working with the Supreme Court Committee on Juvenile Justice and the Juvenile Justice Committees in many of the states. Our next speaker for today is Ms. Yamuna Menon. Yamuna brings with her an experience of about 15 years in closely working with the rural communities, predominantly in Kerala. Before joining Miracle Foundation India, she has worked with organizations such as Kudumbashree, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, and others. Our third speaker for the day is Sister Lude Mary Joseph. Sister Lude is the chairperson of the Child Welfare Committee in Belgaum, Karnataka since 2017. In her previous capacity, she has also served as the JDB member in Kalburgi district for 3 years. Our fourth speaker for the day is Mr. Girish Mehta. Mr. Girish Mehta is a care experienced youth who started his career with Child Helpline. During this period, he came into contact with other care leavers who were facing similar challenges. Moved by their experiences and struggles, Mr. Mehta initiated the development of Care Leavers Network, which we also now known as the Care Leavers Inner Circle or CLICK, with the aim to provide support and creating a platform that is led by care leavers and for care leavers. Our next speaker is Mr. Satish Kumar. Mr. Satish Kumar has been working as the District Child Protection Officer in Namakkal District in Tamil Nadu since the past 4 years. He has been involved in social work since 18 years and has worked on different themes. Mr. Satish has a master's degree in social work. On that note, I'd like to move on and invite our first speaker for the day, Mr. Sonikuti George. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a complete pleasure to have you with us today. You've seen the answers that we received on the Menti. Just to sum all of that up, my first question to you would be, can you elaborate on the concept of family strengthening and its significance in the context of child protection, especially because you are someone who's coming from that background, and how does family strengthening contribute to the overall well-being and stability of children and the families? Over to you, Mr.
Thank you, Anisha. Thank you for the good words, and extremely happy to be here with the leaders and change makers. And as Miracle Foundation leading the way, I think it's extremely helpful. I think the whole parameter of trying to define what is the family strengthening from a child protection point of view, the child protection mechanisms globally is in India particularly leads to response mechanism and not prevention mechanism, and the focus of the family as a prevention unit and a well-being unit is the first and foremost dimension. And I think if you really look at the preamble of the UNCRC, the very third paragraph states that convinced that family as the fundamental group of society and the natural environment for growth and well-being of children, the state should be, the family should be afforded the necessary protection and assistance so that it can freely assume the responsibility. So what we are saying is, right from articulation of child protection, child rights, the centrality of the family as the most important factor that governs the life of a child is specified. And also it is the state responsibility to provide those mechanisms that will enable families to look after children. I mean, if you go back to the UN guidelines on alternative care, which was in 2009, 90% of the document is talking about family strengthening in terms of what needs to be done to strengthen families so that children are not separated. And if children are being transitioned into families, what needs to be done. I think this is the two dimensions of the work that we need to look at in terms of family strengthening. One, the first dimension is preventing children from leaving families or being forced to leave families to institutional care or any care. The second is, if children are there in institutions, how do we get them back? That transitioning dimension, which we need to be doing, is a very critical dimension. This, I think, is what I would really say is the important dimension. Yes, Anisha.
Thank you. I think you've already spoken a lot about challenges. I was going to come to you for the challenges and the misconceptions as my second question.
Yeah.
You know, how do we address this misconception that exists? There are guidelines that we have. There are enough number of orders that we also have now. How do we challenge the misconception that exists, especially on family strengthening, and how can it be effectively implemented? Would be
I
my
think
next question to
the
you.
misconception is not on family strengthening. The misconception is in the minds of the people's thinking that institutionalization or putting children in educational institution is the best option for children. I think, like many of the things like, child marriage or any of these good practices which are there, which are harmful to children, many of the parents believe that they are doing the right thing for the child. And the misconception that families wanting to, like 80% of the admissions to childcare institutions before the systems were in place, before gatekeeping was strengthened, was because the families said that we are not able to look after because of economic reasons, and they wanted to kind of, send children. So the misconception of institution being a center where children grow to their full potential is the myth which really has put these pressure on getting children into this one. In terms of family strengthening, there is the failure of the system is that we are not able to converge the social protection schemes to families identified with vulnerabilities which require special focus to children. And if we are able to bring that, when we are able to identify vulnerable families, your Thrive Up, for example, is a mechanism we can actually use to find out the vulnerabilities of the family and therefore reach out to this one. So that is not a happening thing. That convergence between many other departments and this ones make it that will be a reality only when we are able to do that.
Thank you. I think that just gives a lot of insight into what we should and what we shouldn't also focus on, I think. My third question to you would be, what do you think are the specific actions in this regard that we should continue doing, maybe stop doing, and maybe restart if we have all probably tried it before and not taken it up? What are the kind of things that we should restart to make family strengthening a critical component of care reform, particularly when we're talking about transitioning children from the CCIs to the the family environments?
Yeah, if you really look at the last decade, last 10 years, the rate at which I think the game changer was the COVID, when the Supreme Court came with the directions to kind of send back children who had families back to their families and to support them, which actually put, at least for the southern state, 50% of more than 50% of children in childcare institutions were integrated with families. So there was a forced integration, transitioning, which actually did not follow up with necessary needed support to families. I think that was the challenge at that point. Because of the limited mobility, because of those issues, we did have challenges in reaching out to families and making sure that the children were adequately looked after, and the well-being of the children was the center of this one. However, the fact that only 5 to 10% of such children came back to the system really shows that the families did have the means and wherewithal to deal with that kind of I would say transitioning that happened in a gusto. Like, it was, but still that gives us the potential. I think most of us who are working in the system know that 80 to 90% of the children in childcare institutions do not need to be there. If we were able to provide the necessary support systems to the family, they could be cared for in the family. And that, I think, is something which we really need to work on. And as the first two leadership dialogues dealt with gatekeeping and what needs to be happening is that how do we really strengthen community systems to make sure that people or the CWCs are not placing those orders of institutionalizing children and making use of the things which have come up. Like, for example, if there is a increased number of sponsorships available in the state, how do we really look at making use of that as a prevention mechanism, reaching out to families? How do we really look at increased allocations in NREG or any other schemes which are available, which can actually strengthen the system and keep children with families? Like, for example, if you really look at Rajasthan example of Palanhar, where the massive amount of money is given to families, especially vulnerable families. Uniformly, it is available to families. Therefore, there is much lesser children coming into institutions. Like Vishesh Palan Yojana in Karnataka, Bal Gopan in Maharashtra. There are schemes which existed earlier, which made sure that the family integration was a reality. And I think we have done enough research into the developmental outcomes of such children who were in childcare institutions and who were, even with that kind of a support system, being made to stay at home. I think this is an area which requires a little more research and study as well. Yeah. Yes,
Right.
Anisha.
I'm glad you mentioned about Palanhar. It is one of the most successful schemes that we have in the country today. But apart from that, if I had to, you already mentioned a few things that is happening in Telangana and a few in Karnataka. If I could ask you to elaborate a little more on what do you see Karnataka and Telangana as, I mean, what is their vision for family strengthening like within the child protection frameworks, and what kind of strategies or policies have been the most effective in these states? And like Palanhar is one of the examples that we take across the country, but what are the case examples that we can take from Karnataka or Telangana, for example, and maybe replicate it across the country?
I think primarily there are two things. One is like the first forms of family-based care, or what we tried to strengthen this system, is when we had, if you really look at what happened during HIV/AIDS time. And that was a time when the country as a collective needed to think about a lot of these things which would make family strength or family-centered interventions a reality. And I think Karnataka had initiated Vishesh Palan Yojana, which I think if now more than 20,000 beneficiaries which are there, and which is happening right now. And in Telangana, I think what was done is identification of children who were orphan children who were in families. There was a survey was done, and you decided to support and go out and reach those families and support them. And not only using the sponsorship under Mission Vatsalya, the PAB, they went to the PAB with a list of children, not just numbers. They said this many, this village, these are the listing which we have done. These are the children who are orphaned and with families. And that, I think, was a very good advocacy in terms of setting in motion the fact that there were families looking after such children, and they needed support, and whoever needed support received the support. Right now, I think this is one way of looking at uniformly looking at those one. And secondly, I think the country lacks a mechanism to look at vulnerability mapping of families. Though what we had done in the district needs assessment in Karnataka 10 years ago was to look at the vulnerability mapping and kind of identify certain pockets and try to focus on this. But I think this needs to become a way of life for the child protection workforce. We really need to use the data from Childline, Child Helpline, any data source need to be used to assess the risk factors and therefore vulnerabilities of children, and then reach out to those families on a proactive manner. This becomes the core of child protection work. Actually, family strengthening is the core of child protection work. And it is not just in transitioning and assessing vulnerabilities and making sure that we are able to intervene at that level would make it happen. Like, for example, if you really look at the database, which the Budget for Children data, page 8 is talking what is happening across the country. I was looking at the data when I started my work 10 years ago, or when we were actively looking at those data. Karnataka, Telangana, and these three states accounted for almost 30% of the total number of children in childcare institutions. And today it is come down to 10%. And 30% of the children who are in family-based support is from these states, which means that there is a transition that is happened and it is set in motion, which I think it is very important to keep up this momentum. Even at the start of integrated child protection scheme, the scheme was talking about family-based care. But then the strengthening of family, it took 2 decades for the transition to happen and to make these movements happen. And I think that is kudos to a lot of people sitting in this meeting who have contributed to this change process. And I think their leadership and their work is something that we really need to appreciate. And I don't want to name them, but I know many of them sitting here have worked very hard to make this transition a possibility. Right.
Thank you. I think those were great insights, and you're right. I'm sure there are people who recognize themselves in this journey of, family strengthening and family-based alternative care. Thank you so much, Mr. George. This was, very, very valuable for all of us. I'm sure the audience is also taking notes, just like I have been taking notes. Moving on to Yamuna. Hi, Yamuna.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I
Perfect.
can.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. You heard what Mr. George had to say about the concept and need of family strengthening. And
Yeah.
he's just shared like variety of information with all of us, and such valuable information. What do you think as a practitioner, especially a practitioner on family strengthening? What are your thoughts on this, especially in the context of transition of children from CCIs to families?
Thank you so much, Anisha. So in Miracle, the children in transition refers to all the children belonging to the CCIs. So I think I have given the answer or the response to the first mentee question as well. This doesn't mean that all the children will find a way to a family or go home at a stretch. The comprehensive case management suggests the engagement of children with both parents, single parents, and no parents when they are in the CCIs itself. If I want to explain it a little more, the engagement can be further, it can be explained as, making effective assessments for decisions, intensive preparations of families, and family visits also. Since the beginning, in our work, the premise of our work has been based on the JJ Act principle that institution is the last resort. So it is, and we also believe, and, we also try to implement along with the government, the Mission Vatsalya principles as well. However, the complexities of placements, concerns of safety, and focus on sustainability made us initiate a child-focused family strengthening process. Considering this, we understand that the strength-based approach will aid in crisis resilience. So according to us, the primary aim of the family strengthening process is to prevent children from entering the system, or if the transition is being carried out, then efforts should be towards the sustainability and not children entering the system for a second time. That means looking at appropriate community-based targeted interventions that are value-based and efficient in nature. So this is how, we work. By working on these, lines, we have been able to, transition almost 2,000 plus children in this, last years. And the follow up is also given to them. And when we are talking about the follow up, it is not just the CCI partnered partnered CCI workers, or the social workers or case workers who does the follow up. At right now, it is like we are working with 10 states in India, and mostly in all the 10 states, we are working with the government. So at some point, the district child protection unit, the CWC, the district child protection functionaries like the social workers, case workers, they are also part of this. So now we do a lot of follow ups jointly as well. So now they also understand the importance of looking at family strengthening now. Yes, Anisha.
Um, Yamuna, I was just curious to also understand, and also, if you can share with the audience, how do you do this? How is this done in Miracle? Is there a methodology that you have? Is there a tool that you have?
Yeah, so we have developed a tool called the ThriveWell app. So it is a software application. So it is, where, you can do the assessment on a recurring basis. If you can just go to the next slide, you can help me. Yeah. So what we do in the ThriveWell app, so there are, we look at 5 well-being domains, and all these 5 well-being domains are aligned with the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals as well. So, once it is not just like, this ThriveWell app is used after the transition. When the child is identified for transition, from then on, we can use this ThriveWell app, and see what kind of support the child and the family requires, so that the children who are waiting for placements, they are also taken into consideration for family strengthening. And also, it is like it is a combination of capacity building, combination of linkages, like accessing linkages, and accessing to schemes, accessing to programs, maybe skill development for older children, or skill development for young mothers. So these are all possible actually. So this is how we do the assessments. And we can do these assessments till the 2 years prescribed by JJ Act. And even after that also, for some families we can do it, because we also understand that many of the families, many of the children who get transitioned, they require extensive or extensive follow up as well, more than 2 years. So we can do that also. Can we go to the next slide? And the ThriveWell application features 4 components. It's like assessments of households and children. Appropriate interventions can also be made. Then follow up. So the follow up of the families, to track progress of the interventions recommended. And we can also analyze the data, like analyze the data through the ThriveWell dashboard and reports to make data driven decisions. So this is not just for Miracle. It is for the any person who is working with the children. So
Right.
we can use it, and very rich data can be obtained, where just interventions can be made and followed up.
That's great to hear, Yamuna. And that's also very insightful. Keeping all of this in mind, keeping the work that you've been doing, in your states, if you can quickly take us through the kind of challenges that you face and how do you mitigate them, and if I can just request you to keep your answers short and probably limit to half a second, I don't know, 30 seconds.
Okay, fine. So I can just talk about major challenges. One is like, channelizing the institutional work for non-institutional care services. So this is a challenging one, because the CCIs, they started for institutional services. So right now we are talking about non-institutional care services, which is not very familiar for them. So sometimes, the child protection workforce and the CCIs, they do not feel the need for a follow-up, as the community engagement activities are not part of their strategies. And sometimes, they also see the family strengthening and family-based alternative care initiatives as a separate work. So it is, but it should be clearly understood that the CCI is a transit to reunite the children and their families in crisis through family strengthening. So, if the child is placed in the alternative forms of care like foster care, or then steps should be taken to reunite the child permanently with the biological family with the support of family strengthening in a later stage. Or the lack of support is also one of the challenges which can be mitigated by involving volunteers as recommended by Mission Vatsalya. The second, challenge could be like, capacity building, capacity building of the, social workforce. We believe in capacity building, and capacity building is very crucial with Miracle, and that has been doing relentlessly in the States as a part of system strengthening. For this, it is important for us to study the activities that are carried out, at institutions, and see how they can be, stretched, reshaped, and utilized for the preparation of children and families for the reintegration. Then comes the challenge. Second challenge could be system strengthening for convergence. Convergent action plans are one of the principles of Mission Vatsalya. Currently, the demand for child-focused family strengthening is made by those working directly with the children. In Tamil Nadu, in two districts we worked, we collaboratively worked with, two districts and on convergence meetings for post reintegration support. And that was a hit, actually. So, that was a time when the other line departments understood the scope of the schematic linkages that could be beneficial for the children and families which we are working with. We need to activate spaces for dialogues, study who can hand hold with us in different models of family strengthening. The importance of CBO PRI interface for concurrent support of families is another way of looking at family strengthening. I think the local development initiatives become thinner when there is limited interaction among PRIs and between PRIs and CBOs. Also, coordination of community workforce is key for any effective follow-up, follow-up of transition. The role of NGOs should be to inspire or show them the scope and facilitate the processes at different levels. For example, joint review of assessments at district level for service design and implementation of the service design is vital for identifying and activating linkages with all the departments, activating the district child welfare and protection committees as well. Similarly, effective facilitation of structures at community level is necessary, as it opens communication for discussing, child rights and child protection, work in the realm of, family strengthening. I just want to bring one more challenge here. That is,
And if you could just do it quickly, please.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes, sure. And that is like, follow-up versus the hand-holding. So in many cases, as the JJA, the Juvenile Justice Act prescribes, 1.5 years to 2 years of follow-up, it doesn't yield good results. As we know, children who get a family after long years of institutionalization face many problems when they actually get transitioned. Here, family strengthening should talk about recreation of meaningful families, relationships, belongingness, and shared responsibilities, building financial stability, accessing facilities, participation and voice, interface with power structures, and so on. So in short, the follow-up mechanism should look at how families can be be made resilient to crisis. And here, CWC plays an important role for instructing with a structured follow-up order as per, Section 37 of JJ Act. So these are some of the challenges we face, and these are some of the mitigation, ways of mitigation, like to overcome the challenges also. Yes, Anisha.
Thank you so much, Yamuna. I think that was great. You gave us a lot of fodder. And I think now I know what to ask Sister Luth. Hi, Sister Luth. Thank you so much for patiently waiting for me to come back to you. I have you heard Yamuna and Mr. George also talk about system strengthening, and I wanted to ask you. You're a child, welfare committee chairperson, and as a child welfare committee, how do you ensure support to children who are being sent back to their families from the CCIs? What are your strategies? What do you actually, what are you able to do with such children in such cases?
Yeah. Thank you for Sonikuti sir and Yamuna ma'am. You have shared your vast experience where it relies majority of the work should be done by CWC. Through CWC, the children are going to reintegrate to the family. And once it is a major part from CWC, disposal of case as we think, as we are sending the children, first we request the child welfare officer for the to do the SIR, social investigation report, which is it's only not only that social investigation report gives all the detailed history about a child, its economic, social background and family background and whatever the whatever the place consists of everything. So based on that, we call the parents even to the committee. And first of all, we call the parents and talk very many times, as Yamuna ma'am mentioned, people are not, sorry, parents are not happy to take the children to the family at times. So we have to convince them, because at times we need to be, it is not, in CWS we cannot be rude, but even then at times for the towards the parents, because as Sonikuti sir said, people are not ready to accept, because their concept is totally different, that institution gives better education, better understanding of life. That's what people think. That need to be made aware. It's a challenging issue. So constantly CWC along with the DCPU and DCPU unit and other stakeholders, very many times we personally visit some families where the really struggles are there, where child is really wanted to go. When it expresses in front of the committee that he wants to go home and parents are not allowed, those time literally we have visited the families and convinced and made use of different stakeholders like CDPOs and other stakeholders, and we jointly organize programs and give awareness, very especially in the grassroots, especially in the villages, because where children come from village here, they are not able to understand why we have to go to family, or and very especially with our DCP unit and CWC and other stakeholders, we jointly organized programs in the villages and made known what is the importance of a family towards a child, and what is the importance, why the child should grow in the family. See, and we give a lot of examples like juvenile CCL, children, how the child will turn into other category. So when the child is growing, say they see better family life, they see the parents better, and their parents will become role models. When we give awareness and some tools for their building up of the children, or then the parents also can adopt some values and they can imbibe that values towards the children when the child reintegrated to the family.
Thank you. I think you actually summed it up so well for us, right from what Mr. George was saying to Yamuna, and then the linkages that you brought. These were great. Thank you so much. I'll quickly move on to Girish. Girish, I wanted to I wanted to ask you in relation to this recent move that the Ministry of Women and Child Development has come up with. Girish, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. I think in the month of December last year, the Ministry of Women and Child Development issued a letter requesting all the union territories and the state governments to look into rolling out the aftercare component, which was a significant move. And the initiative, I feel, has set the stage for several other directions and implementation level work, that has flowed into the state governments and the union territory levels. And has pushed towards building a robust ecosystem for care leavers in India. And, my question to you is, could you elaborate on this a little bit, given your experience as a practitioner, especially in this regard, and also as a care leaver? You bring a unique perspective. I've heard you speak earlier as well, and I'd like to ask you about your experience and how your experience informs this approach in the work that you do on family strengthening for children leaving care.
Yeah, thank you, Anisha, for introducing me. So yeah, I think as a caregiver who grew up in the childcare institutions, and I have the first-hand experience from dependency to independency, and this personal experience gives me a very special perspective on crucial role of the family support. And any young people who in a normal family, they have the family to push back for anything that happened in their life. Even during my school life, when I saw any my school friend with their family attending the sport day or parents meeting, so I was very sad to why I don't have that kind of the experience in my own life. And that's make me very importance of the family. That's really important role to play in anyone's life, and that create actually important experience to me and create build a unique approach to work children like me who are living from institutions, because the most of the institutional children have their past trauma or past tragedy that some of the children came into institutions, and same many of them just came for the like single, they have the single parents or shifted to institutions. But I believe like as Sony sir has also mentioned, the Palanhar scheme in Rajasthan that actually trying to play a significant role that children may not be shifted in institution, they can slowly uh, do in a family strengthening level work so that children can be slowly integrated in the family, in the society. Otherwise, like us, like care leavers, like they are living from institution at the age of the 18, what happening? They becoming again orphan or the loneliness, and that creating mental pressure, and that making very traumatic pressure to in their life. If we can just cut off or just change the bottleneck, like slowly we can just give the family strengthening support during the institution level, and that can be fill the gap very easily, I believe. Yeah, that's why.
Thanks, Girish. I think that was very, very good. I really appreciate you being so candid with us. This reminds me of one of the, opportunities I had recently to hear a panel of care leavers where one of the care leavers very candidly said that, don't drop your decisions on us. Ensure that we are given a platform where we can talk about our experiences and what is right for us and what is not, right? And so on that note, my next question to you would be, what would be your recommendations? What would be your recommendations for strengthening, families to support children better, especially the ones who are moving from CCIs to families, back to the families sort of setup?
Yeah. So I believe like especially CWC and the DCPUs are very important part of this for the CCI children who gonna shifted to family strengthening or the foster care system. If the both body, if they play a very significant role, like as a grandparent, like in our time when I was in the CCI, I used to say to my peer support that these two bodies are our grandparents and the CCI is our family, our parents. If the grandparents are just doing monitoring very well to make sure the transitioning of the family, like any children who gonna shift it to family or a foster care, that two part will play very good role. If they can will, they will. And this integrations program or I think this kind of things will help a lot. And second thing is that the I think ish- I believe the children who really if the family standing children are going to move out, and for example the children who currently in the family in these institutions, the children they want to integrate and transition in the family, they have to be some sort of the mechanisms, sort of the systems or bridge program, so that easily the children can facilitate, like especially for the care leavers, if in the starting the peer support network in the build during the children who living in the CCI, that will help a lot, especially for the care leavers, like they uh, where the care leaver can connect with each others and share the experiences and build the sense of the family for each other, and this can help them better to understanding the importance of the family and provide the sense of the belonging for each other. Yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Girish. I think those were great sharing points. And if you have time, if you can also just quickly mention in the chat box and on the work that Click has done so far, on especially the order that I was mentioning. I know we don't have time right now, but hopefully we can come back to you on that. But in the meanwhile, if you can just add it in the chat box, it'll be great for everyone to know. I'll invite Mrs. Satish now. Mrs. Satish has been extremely patient with all of us at the moment. Mrs. Satish, if you can.
Yeah,
hear
yes,
us.
yes.
Great.
Yes.
Mrs. Satish, you heard, you heard the arguments and you heard the points and you heard such great recommendations that have come in. As a DCPO, you are working on some very critical components, especially under the Mission Vatsalya, right? And one of the key things is talking about linkages, especially how do you support families and children through these linkages, especially, in the whole concept of the five well-being domains, right? Which Yamuna had also shared, and you've also
Yeah,
mentioned
yes.
this before. If you could just take us through this very quickly. Thank you.
So I'm happy to share about what we did in our Namakkal district. And so I'm going to explain our initiative, 5 components, the kinship care and networking with the line departments and CSR and foster care and gatekeeping. So we have first to schedule an internal department coordination meeting with the staffs of the CWC, JJP, and probation officer, and also our unit. So at the conclusion of the meeting, so we finalized the 3 lists: the orphan with the details for our foster care, and single parent children, and also orphans, but they have biological relatives. So based on that data, certain orphan children residing at our home have family members who are in the bad financial standing and do not have extra income to support their children at home. However, family members are willing to look after them even when they don't have a steady job. We scheduled a session of kinship counseling for the families. So our counselor and also CWC members gave the families recommendations during the counseling session on why we recommended that they maintain the children in their homes. Following the sessions, when they took the kids home for the annual holiday, so they closely watched the kids' behavior and intellectual growth. They clearly differentiate between the institutional children and also family-oriented children in comparison. They noticed that the development of our CCI children in extremely delayed in all areas, particularly intellectual and also family communications. So therefore, they made the decision to step up and provide a kinship care for the children. So these are the kids we identify as being in the CCIs. So 9 children were chosen for kinship care and reintegration into their homes. With the sponsorship committee consent, we updated the sponsorship program with the names of these kids. And from now on, they will receive a monthly cash aid of 4,000 to be used for these specific children. The children and their family are overjoyed to have our financial support and to be able to keep the children at their home with them. Yes.
I like how you said the children are overjoyed. That's great to hear. You heard Girish some time back, and Girish was saying, he gave this lovely term called the CCIs and, the other departments as grandparents. in this regard. That was actually a very interesting thing to hear. But keeping that in mind, I'm sure you've had some extremely promising practices that have been effective, where you've had CWCs, you had your department, you especially, and the families, together, working together to ensure the child is, given a great environment when he or she is back home. Could you share one probably example very quickly with all of us? We're running out of time. Thanks.
So, you mean testimony regarding the?
Yes. Also, I can't hear you very well. I'm not sure about the others. If you could just keep the mic, but your hand a little away from the mic. Yeah. Don't
Yes.
cover your, it's getting a little difficult to hear you. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. I'm going to share about the networking with the line departments also play a vital role. So after the COVID, many single orphan children came forward to approach for our institutional support. So we decided to organize a job fair for the widows, so for their livelihood purpose. So we discussed with our district employment officer for organizing the job fair. So first we collected the widows' educational background and their experience. So based on that, we discussed with our district employment officer and we arranged a job fair. So at the conclusion of the job fair, nearly 15 widows got the employment, and also some of the government departments offices also we invited during the job fair. So everyone presented their activities and also their schemes. So our district social welfare officer also shared about their schemes. So a lot of the women completed the tailoring courses. So based on that, we find out the many widows, and we discussed with the district social welfare officer and also our district collector. So with their support, we supported nearly 15 widows got the sewing machine. They started their tailoring shops from their home itself. So with this income, they can able to maintain their children in their homes. That is very good case study through our
Thank you.
initiative.
Yes, it is. It is actually a very, very good case study. Appreciation to you and your entire team for making this possible for so many people. Thank you so much. On that note, I'll quickly segue into the question and answer round. While we have questions popping in, in the Q&A section, I have a few questions that I'd like to quickly, ask. This is from the registration forms that all of you must have seen. You had registered, and there was a section where we'd asked for questions that you want to ask the speakers. So we've taken questions, and one or two questions that we'd like to quickly move on and ask the speakers. I'd like to go to Sister Luth. And Sister, the first question that I have for you is, how do you convince the extended family in taking care of children and supporting them on, family-based alternative care?
Yeah, once the child is reintegrated to the family, beginning as usual, they will experience a lot of difficulties in the family, because in the institution they have lived in a very different way, and when they go home, it's a family atmosphere and the society is totally different for them. So naturally, school, other things are same, but experiencing, then sometimes the family has returned back, saying that we are not able to keep. So for temporary shelter, we have taken it's immediately, because immediately we can't say no. So we have taken them, and afterwards through counseling, it is not only through only CWC, DCP unit counselors are there, and childline counselors and other stakeholders. We made the constant counseling towards the family and with the child, and one-to-one sitting, and with the family and with the child. We made sitting away, provided proper counseling. Then afterwards, we gave the intimation towards that CDPO or whoever is in that same exactly where the child is located, comes under that area. So we educated them as this is what this child is, and Act says this. It's not Act says we have to implement forcefully, but it's a mandatory that child should relive in the family. It is not coming again and again. So in that way, there was a lot of struggle, and at times there are even MLAs and even the who supposed to implementing the laws are really revolt against us, and these are the sometimes very difficult situations we experience, and we convinced them. See, JJ Act says like this. See, you implementers, you are the people who make this law, and you again joining with the family and coming and asking them to coming back to the institution is not a good practice. The child is interested to go back to the society or the family, but family is unable. Because of that, only because family is not happy, we cannot, because ultimately we have to give importance to the best interest of the child, not the what a mother or a father says. So we have to consider the child's best interest, and child decision need to be addressed and respected. So in
So,
that,
sister, just interrupting on that note, do you think it is? Like, I'm sure because you already mentioned that you take the child's perspective, but could you tell us how important it is for all the agencies to ensure that child's perspective is taken, in this transition journey that they experience? If you could just elaborate a little more on that, and one more question to you: do you always do this as a practice in your CWC? Or do you do it on case basis?
on case basis we take up, because there are not all the cases will not be like that. Case differs from child to child. So whenever the child comes, so child is interested, because see, as I mentioned, I have already once case studies I mentioned. A boy wanted 7 years, he is in the childcare institution. Institution is very happy, and family is also happy because he is progressing in everywhere. So the child is deep down in his heart, he wants to go home to live with his life with a mother and sister, but mother is not willing. So then the family we wanted, we counseled. Then child is deep down in his heart, he wants to go home. Then we called her mother, and in front, then mother was unwilling. She was very adamant in the sense she can go to any extreme. She even called that MLA or so many other stakeholders, whoever she knows, all the influential people, and influential people actually really did not know why we CWC are recommending the child to go back home. So then afterwards, we talked to them personally afterwards, because we did not have any, in that frame time, we were not able to address the issue. So we personally took the numbers of theirs, and we constantly had a dialogue with them. And it is not only we CWC, along with the DCPO unit, because our unit is very strong. It is very supportive for us to any work where whatever we ask in the for the welfare of a child, it's really we get good support from the DCPO. Wherever the DCPOs are really supportive towards the CWC, there will not be any problem, because our linkage will be really strong, and people or the child can be reintegrated in a proper manner. And afterwards, where whatever the and as the this Mission Vatsalya,
Yes.
the scheme implemented, then from there we have provided 761 child for this sponsorship program, and 9 children for the foster care, and afterwards again 21 children aftercare. It is for the above 18. All over Karnataka, it's only in Belgaum we have got a aftercare for the boys. So all over Karnataka, different parts of Karnataka, children are coming, and we are placing them in that order, and some 7 to 8 adoptions were given. All this only because of this Mission Vatsalya program, and it is strengthened, and we are happy that to adopt that whatever the circulars come, we are really becoming aware of that, and we are may not be 100%. We try to practice somehow. We want to Mission Vatsalya program need to be strengthened in our district.
Thank you, sister. This was
And
very
one more
strong
thing,
words.
and one more point I want to mention.
Very
In
quickly, sister.
Belgaum, we had 45 child institution cares, and today we have got only 20 CCIs, because all the others, they were not able to follow up about this JJ rules and regulations, unable to follow. They have surrendered their registration back, and today only 350 children are placed in the institution. Slowly we take them also, and slowly we reintegrate them also to be in the family.
Thank you. I think a very significant point that you've mentioned. I'd like to bring Mr. Satish back. A very quick question to Mr. Satish. I hope Mr. Satish is still around.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Taking back from what Sister was saying, what steps do you think the district child protection functionaries and the CWCs should take in implementing the Mission Vatsalya guidelines very strongly? What is your
Yes.
opinion on this?
Yeah, sister saying DCP unit coordination is very must for implementing the reintegration of children to the families. So that is very important point. So the mutual coordination between the CWC and CWC and the DCP unit is very important, because we identifying the children from the homes, then also we identifying the foster care children also from the fields. So finally we present all the children and families into the CWC. So they're only going to decide who is the suitable parents for foster care, and child safety also they counsel with the parents. So they play a vital role, and also the CWC and the DCP unit have good coordination. Easily we can do all the programs. So nowadays it is very big challenge for mutual coordination between the CWC and JJP. So in our Tamil Nadu, so every month we organizing the internal department coordination meeting with the CWC and the JJP and also PO and the DCP unit and Childline also. So as per our director instructions, we discussing our all the things during this coordination meeting. So that is helpful to carry over our program into welfare of the children.
Thank you, Mr. Satish. Thank you
Thank
so much. I'd like to bring in Mr. George back into the spotlight. I have a question for you, Mr. George. Again, on the district administration and the district, the level, what do you do? What does one do to motivate the administration to create childcare fund at the district level? Is that even possible? Is that a distant reality for us? How do you see that? Can't hear you.
I think there are two things here. One is like you see the thought of a district childcare fund and all that came at a time when allocations were not adequate to look at some of these family strengthening programs and sponsorship budget and things like that. Now, what has happened is there is an increased allocation there which requires to be spent properly. Now, the accountability of the distribution of money to the districts and how that gets spent is very critical. Like, for example, Lourdes was talking about, like, what is the role that the CWC can play. And this is where I think the accountability is one dimension, which is how much of money under Mission Vatsalya is getting spent, where is it getting spent, what are those things, that becomes very critical. And in terms of district level fundraising, what we have seen in some of the southern states is we've been actively engaging with CSR, and you're able to bring in a lot of resources from them, but not necessarily for childcare fund, but otherwise, like, in terms of even when we formulated the whole concept of childcare fund, I think we were looking at CSR and contributions from other mechanisms and how do we really look at it from something like that. But right now, I think with the increased allocations, there needs to be a lot more of thrust on how are we utilizing this. And I think that watchdog function and that accountability building needs to be part of how we look at it. Yes, Anish.
I have another quick question for you. This is actually related to the tribal communities and how do we ensure family strengthening in such a scenario where migration, is seen as rampant and there are different customs also. What does one do? How does the district administration, the CWC, how do we work around this sort of a problem?
I think the whole work in Maharashtra with, I think UNICEF also was in a lead role, looking at the migration for the sugarcane industries, how they worked with the communities and created facilities within the communities for caring for such children and letting the parents not take the children is a model that we can really look at it if we know which communities migrate at what period of time, and therefore making the district administration and DGPU kind of work together in making some things like that happen. The alternatives available to maybe community living of children within the or group living of children, kith and kin taking care of family. There are multiple options that come in when you do something like that. So we have examples across the country, and I think the Maharashtra experience is something which has been documented and which is actually a very meaningful intervention which can be looked at. And I think as also like what Sachi had put in the comments column, we can also look at local organizations and fit persons. Like the whole concept of fit person is an underutilized opportunity in terms of like how do we really give that status to families and make sure that those children are cared for, and this one, that is also another potential that can be used at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd now like to keep the floor open for questions that the participants may want to ask. I know a lot of questions are there, and Mr. George, there's a question that Geeta Rani has put in the comment section as well. If you could just take a look at that. If anyone wants to ask any question, please raise your hand and we'll unmute the mic. While that is happening, I have a question for Girish. I can't see any hands, so I'm going to take one more question from the question pool that we have already received today. Girish, I have a question for you. I hope Girish is here. Sorry, I can't see.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. The question for you is, are aftercare services available only for children transitioning out of the CCIs, or are they available for the children in kinship care or foster care as well?
So yeah, currently aftercare means the children who move out after the age of the 18, and that's called the aftercare. So the kinship children and for the foster care are not currently available in as per my knowledge. As a JJ also, there is a whole concept that the children who currently leaving the institution care at the age of the 18, they are the ready to shift in the aftercare schemes and the policies. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Girish. I can see Vedehi ma'am has raised her hand. Ma'am, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Please let us know what your question, who your question is directed to. A brief introduction would also be great. Very brief. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Vaidehi Subramani. I worked in child protection system for 2-3 terms in CWC and JJB. I would like to know, is there any cap for sponsorship? Or is it as per district or state level, or what it is?
Ma'am, who are you asking this question from? Is there anyone amongst the speakers?
Mr. George?
In reality, this is a state allocation, the sponsorship money. The freedom is in the state to allocate it based on the need of this one. Cap, technically, there is no cap, but in practice, the money availability is limited. Therefore, the funding is not usually commensurate with the requirement. So there is even though the amount is doubled this year from the last PAB to this year, the numbers are doubled, but that is a good enough indication, which actually talks about the potential for this one getting increased further in the later years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? We have time. We have a few minutes. Okay. Some Durga Shankar Patra. Sorry. You can please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah. Hello. Myself Durga Shankar Patra from Restless Development. So yeah, we're working on child protection in Jharkhand, the state of Jharkhand in Pakur, Niti Ayog as personal district. I just want to know, because I think the previous ma'am who asked about CAP. So I just want to know how they decide to allocate the sponsorship number to the district wise. Is there any logical survey happens or government has some logical data that, because I think in our field we find that many orphan people, children or semi-orphan children, they need support. The family really needs support, especially in a tribal belt, because I think in tribal belt the migration is a huge problem. And then if father is not there, then the child, the mother goes to work, and the younger girl, the older girl, they have to take care of their siblings. So that happens. So due to that, what happens? They miss schools. They get into the early marriage. Everything happen. So how this logically flows, and how as a civil society organization and how an NGO we can play a crucial role in this sponsorship arena. Yeah.
Is there anyone amongst the speakers you'd like to directly ask this question to?
I think I'll just come in.
Sure.
If you really go to page 8 and see, look at the number of states and what is the percentages of allocation, I think there is, Durga has a point which requires a lot of attention. What has happened in most of the PABs, I told you, where states were able to go with a convincing argument about the number of sponsorship and support, they got that resource. And now what has happened is it's got doubled. Now, in terms of states which were not able to articulate their requirement in reality, have really not been able to make that impact and get those resources. And I think by and by, I see the allocation needs to be increasing. This is what the future holds, and that is in reality that's what should be happening. But I think this is a point for advocacy, and it needs to be something which the groups which are working at the state level in Jharkhand need to really take it up. And also the source of resources need not necessarily be Mission Vatsalya alone. You might have from the mining department or from the tribal welfare department where resources are available. You actually need to match it and take it forward. Like, we have used, for example, the construction workers welfare fund for some of those things in urban areas. And how do we really work around these is something which we need to master ourselves. Yeah, over.
Thank you. I could see Kavita's hand raised. Kavita, do you still want to ask a question?
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Am I audible, Anisha?
A little louder would be great.
Yeah. Hi. Is it now? Oh, okay now?
Much better. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity. So my question is I think to Yamuna and to Sister Ruth. When we were talking about family strengthening and reintegration of children, I think in my experience, I've also observed that after the reintegration, also families tend to become dependent on the caseworkers at time. And as we know that JJ has its own follow-up mechanism, and 2 years is not a very short time to follow up with a family. So what mechanisms that both of you have, or see to make sure that the family doesn't get dependent on the social worker or the counselor, whosoever is following up with the families later on?
Yeah, Anisha, can I just respond to that? Thank you, Kavita, for the question. So, we completely agree that many of the families require more than 2 years of follow up. That is the reason why I was also mentioning about the hand holding process. So when we are talking about hand holding process, it is like we will be continuing the journey with the families, and it is necessary. And for this to happen, I really feel that we need to repurpose the objectives of the collectives at the grassroots level as well, the CBOs actually. So we have a rich experience, a rich history of the SHG movement in almost all the states, and southern India, especially in Kerala, we have that now also. It's like it is very live. So it is like we need to bring that element of child focus in the family strengthening, and see how the community as such, with the support of women, with the family, with the elected representatives, how we can do that. Second thing is that follow up is not just the social worker's job. It is also the job, or it is also, we can also actually we can also request other community workforce to partake in this process. So here in Miracle, what we do is that we work along with the community workforce as well, the ICDS, ASHA. We give need-based training and see how they can be used, utilized for the follow-up services. So this is what I would like to mention here.
Thanks, Yamuna.
Thank you. Thank you, Yamuna.
Sister, would you have any last comments on this, or can we move on in case you don't want to add anything?
No, actually, Yamuna ma'am mentioned very clearly, and it is not only for 2 years, it is nowhere it is mentioned. It is, we can continue, that is not an issue. Actually, contacting with other stakeholders, and we can make it. It is not an impossible thing. It's a possible thing we can look into, and we can address this issue.
Thank you. I think this was an amazing session. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, listening to all the insights that the speakers had. Very, very big thank you to the speakers on that note. The last few points from my end for today. One is definitely the questions that all of our participants had. We will come back to everyone with the answers for that in the subsequent emails that you will receive from us. Please see that. There's a feedback link that you will receive. It's also in the chat. Please ensure that you give us feedback. It'll help us improve. We definitely need that motivation from all of you. The last two important points from my side would be, I think let's all start to work in the states to focus on strengthening at least the district level convergence platforms, such as the child welfare and protection committees, the PRIs, the ULBs, with respect to enhancing non-institutional care as mandated by the recent letter of the MWCD, which you would also find in the chat box. My colleague Sandhya would have definitely shared that. The last point would be transition and family strengthening are not two separate concepts, as you would have heard today very clearly from our speakers. They're very much integrated. And we need to bring family strengthening in our narrative and in our work very, very strongly if we want to work towards transition. The organizations, there are many organizations working, the network ISCN is also working towards providing a framework on family strengthening. Kindly look out for that. You must have received the link in the chat box again. A very, very warm, evening to all of you. And I hope you enjoyed our session today. And please look out for the next leadership dialogues. And I truly hope all of you can join us again. Thank you once again to all the speakers. Thank you to the backend team. This was an amazing evening. Thank you again.